We're going to start by letting each candidate introduce themselves. We'll start with Mayor Gaskin, and then for the first question, we'll start with you, and we'll just go on down the line and take turns being first to answer the questions after that.
They tell me this is my 2-minute introduction. My name is Jeff Gaskin. I'm the current mayor of South Point. I have lived in, loved, and served the village of South Point for almost 60 years. Our village is in better shape than it's ever been. I started out as a junior fireman when I was 16, and I've served 8 years now, almost 8 years in county and city government. I think I'll just let the next one go.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Brad Atkins. I am running for one of the open seats on South Point Village Council. I have been a resident of South Point for the past 8 years. I'm originally a Chesapeake boy, but I had the good fortune to marry a South Point girl, Miss Guerra. She is a teacher at South Point High School. I am a pastor. I'm the senior pastor at the Nazarene Church in Chesapeake. Before that, I was the youth pastor, which was an adventure in and of itself at the Nazarene Church here in South Point. I am a businessman by trade. I've been in the financial services and insurance business for the last decade. I have built a business from absolutely nothing, and I pride myself on being able to be the one that can bring all of us together. Thank you.
I don't know why I'm putting that out there because I know it's by heart. My name's Michael Lind. I'm a lifelong resident of South Point. I'm a 78 graduate from South Point High School. I worked at the village and I retired with over 30 years service. I worked in the water, the wastewater, the streets. I worked about every job we had there. I currently drive a school bus for South Point so I can have something to do. And with my background in the work of South Point, I think I am doing a good job in the village on the council in Ojai, and I think we've done a good job at trying to keep our village going in the right direction. And I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you. Told you I'm short.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Austin. I'm running for re-election, South Point Village Council. Don, could you cover your legs up, please? That's sort of distracting. I've been a 60-year resident of South Point. I was a 77 graduate of South Point High School. I have bachelor degrees from Ohio University, from the College of Engineering and the College of Business. I have 40 years experience in the pipeline construction industry, 40 years experience in business development, 40 years experience in business management administration, 40 years of experience in project management. I've worked all facets of pipeline construction. I've carried jobs as a laborer, and I've run a 300-person company as president. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. There's a great group of people sitting up here, and we're in it for you. What's ironic about this is we really should be sitting out there, and you all should be up here on stage firing questions at us as far as exactly how this is going to work and what we're going to do to make South Point a better place to live. I truly appreciate this opportunity, and I'd appreciate your vote. Chuck Austin, re-election, South Point Village Council. Thank you.
For our first question, how would you describe the current state of your village, and what are its strengths and biggest challenges? We'll start with you this time.
Absolutely. Well, I have a distinct perspective, as I am not originally a South Point guy. We actually chose to live in South Point. We had the opportunity. I've had multiple opportunities through business and otherwise to take my family other places, but the beautiful thing about South Point is we have a community, and community is not something that's easily found these days. There's so much division in and around the world that I like to just come home and be able to rest, and I can go to the snack shack and have breakfast and know you guys. I can go to Giovanni's for lunch and have the buffet. I can't tell my wife that, and maybe go to the pizza shop at the end of the day and forget something, and we can run back out to food fair because it's a local business and we support local business, right? I believe that the biggest challenge that we face in South Point is not a challenge at all, but it is readying ourselves for the next phase of growth in South Point. I can foresee in the future South Point growing as far as jobs, new business being brought in, but we have to have the infrastructure to do so. Whenever our wastewater plant is running at 70% of EPA regulations, that means it's time to upgrade, because we can't attract anything new with the old, and it's time for a new generation to step up and make sure that gets taken care of.
Okay, our strengths of the community is we are a tight-knit community. We got low rates for our utilities. We always try to keep that, keep that in mind to try to keep it that way. And our biggest challenges, we got some infrastructure we got to fix in the water, in the wastewater, and it's going to be costly. So we're going to have to work with try to get grants, low interest loans, or whatever we can find to do this infrastructure, because we got some water lines that needs replaced bad. And other than that, I think we're on the right track, doing pretty good with everything else. And thank you.
In physical life, there's two forms of motion. You got static and you got dynamic. In South Point right now, we're very dynamic. We're seeking constant change, constant improvement, constant activity, constant progress, and we are on the move. One of the most exciting things that I hear walking through South Point, talking to our residents, is, wow, there's been a lot of things happen over the last 4 years. And that is very exciting to hear. And I'll tell you right now, standing with our mayor, it needs to be noted, it needs to be recognized that he is leading a group that expects change. He's leading a group that expects improvement. He's leading a group that expects the residents of South Point to be proud of South Point. And kudos to our administrator. Whatever comes out of the mayor's mouth is being taken care of in a positive way. I have never seen in my life as many good things that's happening in South Point as I see right now. What do we have to improve upon? The list is long. One thing I can mention in a short period of time, we've got 16 miles, nearly 85,000 feet of water line that has a compromised structural integrity. Questionable water supply. Right now, we're using 750,000 gallons a day of water, and we only have 900,000 gallons of capacity, which means that on the average, 80% of our water is being consumed every 24 hours. That's a serious issue if we'd ever have catastrophic failure in a way that we couldn't put water out without having adequate storage. So that's a big challenge we've got right now. We've got drainage problems on Billy Joy Drive. We've got drainage problems in Linden Avenue. Our sewage treatment plant is designed for 400,000 gallons per day, and we're running way over that. We've got challenges, but we can fix these. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. That was very good. For your
information, I'm glad I got up here first.
Yes. Everybody, thank you. One of our biggest strengths is the team that we've built over the last 4 years. That team runs from the office staff, the village administrator, our workers. All of the 15 people or so that we have working for us are dedicated to South Point. The morale is high. Things are going well. Most everyone mentioned infrastructure. That is a problem. We have many miles of 1957 water lines. I was born in 1954, so 1957 water lines. And Chuck, being a pipeline contractor, gave us a quote one night, off the wall quote of $100 a foot. And what'd you say, 85,000 feet of it. You folks have seen water breaks. So that's coming. One of our best things behind us is the point. If you're old enough, you can remember in the heyday of the plant, we used to call it Allied Chemical, about 1,200 employees. Now, there are about 800 employees there. So we're almost back to the late 60s number that we had then. I think we have a good team on council working together, and I think if elected again, we'll keep going. Thank you.
One of the biggest complaints of county residents is the lack of jobs that pay a living wage. While there are organizations in the county that work to bring industry to the region, what do you feel is the role of a mayor or council member in making the village more attractive to companies? And we'll start with you this time.
That's why Chuck sit on the end. Well, the best we can do to attract is try to make our village more feasible for business to come into. That's why we try to work with the Point to get more jobs in there to come into it. And then also in our business areas, commercial areas inside South Point itself. We need to try to get business to come in there, and we just got to keep our village nice, and the community, and the rates cheap, and to try to attract them in more. So that's all thank you.
If we're going to attract businesses, we got to be business friendly. We have to position ourselves in a way that businesses want to be here. We have to make it sometimes tax advantage for them to be here. The Point has done that quite well. As the mayor has mentioned, it's been restored to an area back from the 70s, which is very good for each and every one of us. As a community, we need to back the Point. As a community, we need to work together not only to fill the Point, but get the Point to the point where we have to bring people, additional businesses into our village as well. It's a problem all over small villages throughout the United States as far as how do you attract businesses. We're not necessarily in a high populated area like a Columbus or a Cincinnati, but we're in a great area. And the Point has provided us with opportunities that we can take advantage of as a village. We just need to continue to work hard to make South Point a business-friendly environment. Thank you.
Today in my office, we were talking about water. If a business comes to the Point and needs more water than we can supply, we have to turn them down. We have turned down at least one business in the Point because we could not supply the water they needed. They needed 1 million gallons a day. So infrastructure is something we're going to have to work on. We need to be helpful to the ones that want to come to the village. We need to cooperate with them. Of course, we have low water rates. Of course, we have low sewer rates. My son is a superintendent at Genmar McSweeney's. I talk with people from Engines Incorporated. They can hire people, but they can't find the people to hire. We need to help people. We need to help the Point. We need to help the chamber. We need to help people that can train the workers for tomorrow. I am a big proponent of vocational education. Any way we can help with that, we need to, so that we can make sure that people are available for the jobs that are there.
As the mayor said, I believe that the most important way that we can make sure that we have livable wage jobs, and that means different things to different people, obviously, is to tap into the educational resources that we have. I believe, unfortunately, we have developed a mindset here in Appalachia that we do not have the skilled labor to be able to bring people in and jobs in. I have to digress with that. We live very close to Marshall University. When people graduate from Marshall, they leave because there's nothing here for them to stay for. We have Ohio University in Ironton. They leave because there's nothing there for them to do whenever they leave. Now, we do have a great technical education system out at Collins. I think we need to tap into that. I think the key thing that we need to do is to make sure that there are tax incentives. I'm a capitalist. I'm a conservative. I believe that it's good for companies to make money. When they make money, they hire people. It's not nice to say this, people don't like it, but wealth does not trickle up. If you make $50,000 a year, you're not going to hire staff. But if a company thrives, they're able to put money back into the company. They're able to hire more people and bring people in. And in order for that to happen in South Point, we absolutely must have a say in what goes on in the industrial park. We have to have a say. We cannot allow them to come in and pillage what we have as far as resources and have no say. If they want to have tax incentives, that's great. We need to work with the chamber to make sure that they will take care of our people first.
The remainder of our questions are going to be asked by the South Point government class. And he'll introduce himself and then ask another question.
My name is Austin Webb, and I was wondering, do you support the funding levy for Lawrence County developmental disabilities?
Absolutely, I do. I think this is a very significant thing that each and every one of us should focus on. There's a lot of legislation, there's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of issues that need to be overcome in order to get that money in the right location, but I do, by far. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Short and sweet.
As a matter of fact, as I returned from my travels today, I opened a letter that was from the Board of Developmental Disabilities here in Lawrence County, and it came to my attention, I didn't know this, that there had not been a mill increase consummate with inflation since 1990. Now, I was born in 1983, so that makes me a little younger than some of you, but that's been a long time ago. Now, unfortunately, I've heard some talk in the community that that doesn't affect many people, but I say this, if you had a child with developmental disabilities, you would absolutely, unequivocally vote yes, and I urge you to vote yes. It's $87.50 on the year in your taxes if you own a home that's approximately $100,000 in value. Most of your homes are much more than that. It's worthwhile. I'm a living the government guy. That's one thing that we are responsible for.
My answer to that question is yes, too, because they need a lot, and they need a lot of help down there.
I'm Nakayan, and I was wondering, how would you improve cooperation with neighboring villages and townships?
I'm keeping track of that so you don't stick me up there.
How do we improve cooperation? I really think that neighboring villages, municipalities, townships, I don't know how we could cooperate anymore. We already borrow equipment. We already do each other favors. We already cooperate very, very well. we already help our neighbor. So,
I believe that the mayor, which, if you guys notice, he's the only one here, so he's the only one that deserves your vote. Am I allowed to say that? If you want to I believe if you want to represent people, you have to have the guts to stand up before the people you represent. But I'm a new guy. I'm unaffiliated with the way that works. But I know that I got some bad information from social media that suggested that we don't work with our neighbors. And I tell you, as a pastor, we're to help one another. This is a small community. This is a small town. If they need a truck and we've got a truck, let them use the truck. If they need something else, because guess what? When push comes to shove, we're all Americans. We're all Lawrence County citizens, and we're all one people. We're together.
I can't say much more, but I agree with these two here. We're surrounded by small communities just like us. And they can't afford every piece of equipment they need for all these jobs. And so it works out. We can go borrow from this one, they can borrow from us, and we help each other out in the hang to make each one of us a better place to live. And we need to keep that up.
I truly believe that as a group, we'll be much more successful than as individuals. The last thing we need is to separate ourselves, regardless if it's a community, regardless of us going to Ironton, regardless of whatever the situation is. Right now, we have a high level of continuity and cohesiveness within our village. And when I say we, I mean we. And we get a lot done. Regardless if we're working for ourselves or helping others out. We are our brother's keeper. Therefore, we need to make sure that others are helped. And the thing is, they've helped us in the past, have they not, Mayor? Whenever we've needed, they have come to our help. So, very important. We are our brother's keeper. Let's keep it up.
My name is Daryl Taylor, and typically around election season, some begin accusing those in office or running of planning to switch the village to metered water. What is your stance on this issue?
He can go first twice. I look around and I see many people that have been in the village for a long time. And if you've been in the village for a long time, you know that every election cycle, which is just about every 2 years, but mostly every 4 years when the mayor comes around, you know that every election cycle, somebody says that someone is going to put water meters on. And it's been going for as long as some of you can remember. I've been involved in politics. Dad was mayor for 30 years, for almost 40 years now. And it's been going on. We have not put water meters on yet. Jeff Gaskin does not foresee water meters in the foreseeable future. I do believe there will come a day when the EPA will come to town and say, you're going to put water meters on. Okay, then somebody else has got to pay for it, because we already know about how much it's going to take to put water meters, because we're ready for the EPA when they come to town. But we have no plans, and one person cannot put water meters on cannot put water meters in the village. It takes a group of 6 people of council voting to put water meters on. The mayor, if there's a tie, then the mayor gets to break the tie. That's the only voice that the mayor would have. So water meters in South Point? No.
I believe the mayor just said one of the dirtiest words in the day and time we live in, EPA. The job-killing bureaucracy that is the EPA. Unfortunately, I probably foresee in the future, depending upon the outcome of politics much higher than the ones we speak of today, that they probably will come knocking. But I believe that we can defer that as long as possible, because there are a lot of people that would say that, hey, I want to live in a place where I can have all of my utilities publicly for $50 a month. I believe that puts more money in the pockets of our residents, that generates more money back into the economy, and ultimately that increases the value of our property. I say if anybody's going to pay more than just a flat rate, it's these suckers that are inside the industrial park that get a free ride. Woo.
Like I said before, I've worked for the village for 30 years, been retired for 10. EPA used to come in all the time and say, we strongly suggest you go to meters. But that's all they'd ever do, and we have never done it, and we don't plan on doing it, unless they come in and say, we're going to force you to. And then they're going to have to come up with some kind of money, a grant or something, to put it in, because it's going to take a lot of money to put it in. So I don't see it in the very nearest future. So.
I deal with the EPA mandates every day, and they choke the life out of you as a business person. In the last 4 years on council, there has been indirect discussion by others, nothing formal whatsoever as far as water meters go. Unfortunately, this has to pop up during election time. But our mayor has never presented it where it hits our minutes as far as formal discussion goes regarding meters. Is there a day that comes where they say either you meter it or we shut you off? That's a whole different scenario. But until then, we continue to push forward like we are right now without meters. Thank you.
My name is Garrett Carmen. My question is, what are your plans to increase transparency and make government more accessible to residents? Do you favor the video recording and broadcast of council meetings?
Mayor says I can have that.
I stole the last one, I'm sorry.
I guess that's the newcomer's question du jour, huh? Well, that's okay. I believe that there should be complete transparency in politics completely. You know, as I run my business, as I run the church, you have to be accountable for everything that goes on. I don't think that there's any kind of an issue, and trust me, I've looked very heavily at the minutes from the council meetings. There's not an issue here. I believe that it should be. Now, I don't believe that it should be the way that the counties run, when a bureaucrat gets paid a bunch of money to record it and put it on the internet and say, that's a job. But yeah, I say, hey, set it up. We live in the day of the iPhone. Turn that sucker on. Turn the camera on. If you want to be there, you can be there. Let's make that happen.
As far as transparency, our council meetings are open to everybody to come in and listen to. They are put on the village's webpage. Scott has them on there usually less than 2 days after it's done. After the council meeting's done. So we don't try to hide anything. And as far as recording it, we had talked about that, but getting the equipment and somebody to do it, we haven't got that far yet. So we'll have to see what's going to come up with that.
Every council meeting, the mayor sets aside a time for anybody who wants to attend to speak publicly regarding their concerns. And he's very flexible on that. A lot of the time of our allocated 2 hours or 2.5 or whatever it might be, a lot of time is given to the public. The public has opportunity to discuss concerns, issues. Every now and then there's a few kudos handed out as far as what the village is doing, which is very much so appreciated. The minutes are very accurate on a monthly basis. If people want to come in and, let me say this. I highly encourage each and every one of you this year to put it on your bucket list to attend a council meeting, 7:30, first Tuesday of every month. Then you can see exactly how transparent we are. There are laws written. One of them is the Sunshine Law that prohibits people getting together and trying to create activity on the side that is not public knowledge. So we're governed by laws that prevents that from happening. Come to a council meeting. It'll be one of the best times you ever had at the first Tuesday of every month, guaranteed.
Was the question more transparent? Hey, guys. Was the question more transparent? Okay. Recently, we did add cameras to the council chambers, and we do record it. We haven't quite figured out audio with them yet, but we will. Scott does, our village clerk does record it audio. We record the video. The agenda is posted before online on Facebook. Many of our councilmen post the agenda. Many of our councilmen post what happened that evening. I don't know how we could be more transparent except maybe live broadcast. And maybe Armstrong would come in and live broadcast for us, for free, of course.
My name's Sarah Roach, and at this month's meeting of council, the village's pit bull and vicious dog ordinance was repealed, as it had come into conflict with Ohio law. A commission has been formed to study this issue with action to be taken at a later date. What would you like to see in a new law if you feel one is needed?
I'm thinking. I was waiting on you to jump up real quick, Jeff.
I'd like to, but I'll
Okay, that was House Bill 14, is that right?
14, 2012.
It was put in, and we had to change because they will not let you be a specific dog breed. So we got a commission to go study it, to figure out what we can do to make the village safe, not just pit bull, but any vicious dog. And so they're gonna go over it, and we're gonna try to, figure out what we can do to make it safe and not be down on dogs. So.
I don't know what else can be said except that the mayor has built a committee that their objective is to come up with some sort of an ordinance that helps us to better manage potentially vicious dogs in our community. Once those recommendations come in front of council, we'll scrutinize it and see if it lines up legally and whatever's in the best interest of our community. We've taken a proactive action not to take away from what has been written at a state level, but to enhance that here locally. Thank you.
I think that's a good question. It's a fair question. I think in the grand scheme of things, that's just a small bite in the things that we need to actually focus on. But as anyone that's been to a council meeting can attest, the mayor has put together a committee to study maybe a new law, a new ordinance to be put on the books here. But the way that the founders framed our country is that the most potent, most powerful is not the state of Ohio, it's the village of South Point. And I believe that, with dogs or any other animals, it needs to be on a case-by-case basis. We can't put pit bulls. I have a pretty vicious Chihuahua, but it's probably not going to attack you. It may, but it probably won't hurt you. I believe it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. But to be honest with you, we have bigger fish to fry than that.
The state of Ohio tells us that just because your name is Don doesn't mean that you're a bad boy. And just because you are a pit bull doesn't mean you are a bad dog. There are qualifications. It's about a 6-page bill, House Bill 14 in 2012, that tells us how a breed or how any dog can qualify, or we can classify it as a nuisance, a dangerous, or a vicious dog. The new law does give us more leeway in identifying, and after they're identified, a vicious dog is identified, does give us more leeway in handling, controlling that dog, insurance. The new law says that if your Chihuahua gets out 3 times, it's classified as a dangerous dog.
It's very dangerous.
That's what the state is telling us. Our law from 1987 was the model for many other municipalities across the country. Our law from 1987 withstood a federal court case. It's time to change. A dog has to prove that it's a vicious dog before we can do anything about it.
If elected or re-elected as mayor, what would your priorities be?
I don't have to go that way.
I think my priorities would stay the same. My priorities are to be out, meet people, make sure businesses are coming to town, make sure to help businesses come to town, see that the village runs well. You know, the mayor doesn't make the rules. Village council makes the rules. The mayor is sort of in charge with enforcing the rules through these police departments, through the village administrator, and through other things. We've done a lot of things in South Point. We've brought a lot of money into South Point. We want to continue to bring the money. Today we met with engineers about several projects that we've got going on. Did I hear somebody murmur when we mentioned Billy Joy? Was it this table? Your Billy Joy Drive came up today with engineers and other words like grant funding. So continue to work to bring money to South Point. We've brought a lot of money. We can bring a lot more.
The students had to get to the volleyball game, but I want to thank them for asking questions. So the same question for council: if elected or re-elected, what would your priorities be?
Okay, thank you. My number one priority would be to make sure that the cost of living remains low. As we spoke of just a moment ago, it's imperative that we have a low cost of living to be able to take the money that's saved, because it is not normal. You know, my parents lived just up the road 5 miles in Chesapeake. If I told them that they could have all of their utilities for $50 a month, they probably would try to make us trade houses. So it's important that we keep the cost of living low so that we can keep money in our citizens' pocket and also stimulate economic growth within inside of the village. We have a lot of mom and pop type shops that are set up. We need to make sure we take care of them. The second thing that I believe that we need to do is to continue to attract jobs, and I think that the best way to do that is to have tax abatements that have stipulations. I believe that if you are offered a tax abatement, you should have to employ a certain number of people that live in the county of Lawrence, and of that you have to hire a certain number of people from the 45680 zip code. I think it's pretty straightforward. And I also believe, finally, that we have to make sure that our village is safe. It's not uncommon knowledge that we do have a theft ring operating inside of our village. So I believe that instead of having some of our police officers, and council has actually addressed this already, some of our police officers make $13.80 an hour plus. They have no benefits. I believe that we need to have full-time officers that have full benefits and that they have a $1 plus of the highest pay of any village police officers in this county. This needs to be a scary place for people that choose to break the law.
If reelected, I want to keep working on keeping our semi-annual cleanup for the residents of South Point so we can keep it clean. We got a monthly brush pickup. We want to keep that. Keep our rates, our utility rates as low as possible. You know, sometimes they have to have little raises. We know that, but we want to keep them as low as possible. Like Brad said, we got to do something about the theft rings and the drugs and everything else. You know, give our officers some more things to work with so they can keep in the village, you know, inside the village, you know, safe and clean. Thank you.
I've said this several times in the last few months, but your safety and security, it's mandatory for it to stay high on our priority list, period. The way we spend your money is extremely important, that we stay focused on the need and not the want. And the third thing is, we, including you, need to work together at a high level of cohesiveness to ensure that this village is run the way it needs to be run, that we are taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, and we're trying to create a future for those children that will be in these positions someday.
In January, the owner of South Point Biomass pleaded guilty to 1 count of violating the Clean Air Act for knowingly failing to remove the asbestos from the site. Last month, he was sentenced to 2 days in prison, 58 days of house arrest, and 200 hours of community service as part of his plea agreement. Do you feel the punishment was adequate? How do you feel about the strength of environmental protections in the area? Do you feel that they need to be stronger or enforced more?
Do I think he received enough? No. I mean, he made a mess over there. If it was one of us in here, we'd be doing a lot more time than what he's doing, and plus a lot of heavy fines. And they can overreach sometimes, but on certain things, they need to overreach a little bit more. So.
The answer to the first question is no. As a statement, I work every day under the auspices of EPA. I understand severely how harsh they can be over a piece of silt fence or filter sock. A little bit of sediment in a creek can cost hundreds of jobs. Dirt on the road can get a project shut down. Killing a fish, someone's going to go to jail. That's how severe it can be, and I see that every day of my professional career. What happened down here doesn't really line up to those type of rules and regulations. The EPA can be serious. It just depends upon what environment that they elect to target. Thank you.
I don't think there's anyone here that would agree that he got what was coming to him. Biomass has been a thorn in South Point's side for 30, 35 years since they first came to town. You can remember they stored 100 tons of tobacco down there one time and were going to burn it. They didn't have a burning permit yet either, but they had 100 tons of tobacco that someone had paid them to burn. The EPA can overreach. Okay, the EPA is there to protect us, yes. I think that biomass snuck in. I think he did things illegally. And it's like blood out of a turnip, I suppose, for money, but you can throw that turnip in jail. And I think that's where he should be for a little bit longer than what he had.
I think the fact that the gentleman, well, I digress, he's not a gentleman, he's a scoundrel, received 2 days, I believe that illustrates a much larger problem, and that's the corruption that exists whenever it comes to the haves and the have-nots in this world. Someone that has a large infraction like that does seriously impact our environment needs to serve a consummate amount of time for what they've done. But I believe in our area, especially with the number of outdoorsmen, we have a lot of hunters and fishers. Anybody like to hunt and fish in here? Anybody at all? One lady in the middle. See, the corruption problem is being illustrated. I believe that we live in more of a rural type setting. I believe that we're in touch with our environment. I think that we need to just continue to make sure that we do what's right. If we see trash on the ground, pick it up. Don't pour your oil from your oil. Does anybody change their oil anymore? Don't pour that in the storm drain. It's common sense, man. Be a human. That's it.
Those were all of our submitted questions. So now we'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement for each candidate. We'll start on the end here.
Okay, here we go. In closing, I will work hard to see, number one, your safety and security is kept at a high priority within our village. Number two, your money is spent wisely. And here's what I promise you is from a micro level. If we elect to do a project within this community, there will not be an architect, an engineer, or a contractor that will spend our money unwisely. I promise you that. As far as fair market value goes, that's where it will be. I understand fair market value. I deal with it every day. And it will not take anybody in this room by surprise on what we pay for services. The third thing is I will maintain and work to seek a high level of continuity and cohesiveness. I promise to promote an atmosphere of positive, dynamic construction and renounce any form of negative destruction within the administrative ranks of this community. So help me God. Thank you.
I have more than 2 minutes, but we'll make it. We've done a lot. One of the first things we did, we got to tear down the apartments on North Canova Road, something that's been an eyesore for many years, and a couple of other ones through the land bank. Our police department is second to none for a village our size. Our fire department's well supported, reasonably well funded, and we ordered a new fire truck. Financing was approved today, I was told. Early on, I saw communities with rummage sales, yard sales. So now we have 2 yard sales to go along with our cleanup days. What you can't sell the first of the month, end of the month, we'll pick it up and take it away. One of the best things I'm proud of, we were able to buy the house next door to our White Cottage Cemetery. And now we have 50 new plots there. I'm proud to say that I will be buried, and Anita, I hope, will be buried in my South Point. Well, sometime, honey. We've decreased delinquencies in the sewer department by 30%. We spent $800,000 in the sewer plant to upgrade the sewer plant clarifiers. We have a $1.6 million project in the engineering phase now in the sewer plant. Some of the best news is the $800,000 project for sidewalks in South Point. We'll start here at this block because they already have sidewalks. We'll go down, we'll go up to 9th Street, down to Speedway, and both ways, on both sides of the street. I work hard every day to make South Point just a little bit better, and I'm proud to be your mayor.
First and foremost, I want to thank you folks for taking time out of your evening to come and listen to us talk. I know that you could be anywhere, but you've chosen to be with us, and that means a lot to me personally, and I know it does to the other gentlemen as well. In closing, the only thing that I want to say is, you know, my only agenda, I don't have an agenda. My agenda is to serve you. My agenda is to be out in the community each and every day, to be present, to be there to listen whenever you need someone to listen to share and shoulder your problems, to pray with you. I want to be there to do that. I want to fight the good fight. I want to see South Point continue to progress in the way that it's going now. You know, we have 2 little girls. One's 6, and she comes to school here, and we have another one that's 2. They're the light of Gary and I's life. And, you know, for a long time I thought, you know, Brad, you may have to take your girls out of here to have a community that they can grow up in. But I decided that I'm going to fight to make this a community that they can stay in and they can raise their children in, and that you can raise your children in. I want to be the new blood that's needed here. I'm Brad. I need your vote on November the 5th. Thank you.
Because a lot of you out there know me because I've been in South Point all my life, like I said. I'm not very good at public speaking. I like to make it short and sweet. But we got a job to do to keep this village going in the right direction. And there's a fine bunch of gentlemen right here. I just met Brad here a few weeks ago. And I've known Chuck most of my life. I've known Jeff most of my life. And every one of us up here want to work together to make this village strive. But we need your help too. Just remember me come November the 5th. Thank you.
It's not always easy to come up in front of all of your friends and neighbors and answer questions that you didn't see beforehand. So I want to thank every candidate who attended today. So thank you guys. And I also want to thank everyone else who came and listened to what the candidates had to say. Having an informed and engaged electorate is vital for a functioning democracy. So thanks for coming out. Thank you.